Hello out there, we're on the air, it's hockey night tonight.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Light in the Lamp podcast. I'm Rob, I'm here with Steve.
Hello.
As always. I know we didn't have an episode out last week, that's kind of partially my fault. I went away to Carolina, which, shout out to Canes fans, by the way. You guys throw an awesome time, had a blast at PNC Arena. You guys are great. Wonderful people, very nice, and you guys know how to have a good time. But that's not the point of this podcast. We have a lot to get to, so we're going to start with some injuries that have happened. There have been a lot of high-profile injuries in the league. One of them that we're not really going to talk about too much, I know Sidney Crosby's missing his next game. He has been out after blocking a shot, but he's probably going to play, I think they said, later on in the week. So we're not going to really talk too much about him, but we're going to start out west. Three big guys actually went down out west. Let's start with Vladdy Tarasenko. Shoulder surgery. He's going to be reevaluated in 5 months. He's basically going to be missing the entire season. How do you think this... I mean, obviously this changes the dynamic and the complexion of the St. Louis Blues. How, in your estimation, is the team going to have to get over this? Like, how are they going to make up for him?
It's hard to replace a potential 40-goal scorer in your lineup, no matter like how good your team is. But the Blues are pretty deep, so I mean, they've been playing fairly well without him too in the last couple of weeks.
They're first in their division right now.
Yeah, so I mean, Ryan O'Reilly's been playing well. Braden Shen stepped up. They just traded Robbie Fabry away, which is interesting because when you need goal scoring,
he's been on fire for the Red Wings.
I think he just might have needed a change of scenery. I mean, he had those two ACL or like MCL, ACL reconstructions back to back.
Right.
So, but anyway, Tarasenko, like, I think the Blues will be okay, but I wouldn't be surprised if Doug Armstrong feels like if he can add like a scoring piece, like say a Taylor Hall closer to the deadline, that he thinks will put them over the top again. I don't think he'd hesitate to really pull the trigger on something like that, considering you don't have Tarasenko, and even when Tarasenko comes back, he's not going to be in mid-season form. He's going to be kind of out of shape because he'll be rehabbing the whole time. So,
well, even by the time he gets back, it's going to be end of March, early April. So the season is basically going to be over.
He pretty much is going to start. He's pretty much going to be playing in the playoffs, and that's it.
Right. You're just basically going to be throwing him straight into the fire. And I mean, this is a guy last year who put up 68 points in 76 games. He had 10 points in 10 games to start the year. And you're right. I think the issue with the Blues is not that they don't have a lot of depth, but they don't have a lot of goal-scoring depth. I think they have a lot of, big bodies that are deep in the lineup, but really once you get past Tarasenko and really once you get past maybe a Jaden Schwartz or a Ryan O'Reilly, you're kind of looking for goals somewhere. And obviously, I mean, this is going to hurt their power play. I mean, he's really the focal point of that power play. He's basically like their Ovechkin. It runs through him. Or it doesn't run through him, but he's the end result. He's always the guy that they pass to looking for the shot. And it's difficult. And, I agree. I think come trade deadline, if they're in a position where they think they might be able to repeat and go for another cup run, I could easily see them making a move for a goal scorer, especially if they have cap that they can trade away. Maybe like a Taylor Hall that they might just take a rental on, because all we've heard out of Taylor Hall's camp is that he's not going to sign during the regular season, which is another big issue for the New Jersey Devils, who
have a wealth of other issues.
Just have a plethora of issues going on with that hockey team. It was funny, I actually heard that Hall's agent has a history of doing this. He doesn't like signing in the regular season. So his history with his agent always waits until the offseason to sign. So I could see them taking a chance on Taylor Hall and just saying, look, if we get him to re-sign, that's great. If not, we take him on a cup run and he can ride shotgun with Tarasenko when he's back healthy. So that's a big one. And that's a shoulder surgery. I mean, Tarasenko's still relatively young. Like, he can recover from that. But you have to wonder if it's a shoulder on the shooting side. I don't remember which shoulder it is, but if it's his driving shoulder, is that going to affect his shot in the long run? Maybe his shot comes back and it's not where it needs to be. I mean, I know a lot of shooting is in the rotation and whatnot, but you do use a fair bit of your arms in it, and that's something that the Blues might have to consider. Speaking of another injury we got going on in the West, the poor Colorado Avalanche can't get away from injuries. I know Grubauer, I think, missed their last game as well. But they have two guys on the injured reserve list. Gabe Landeskog, who's we haven't been given a timetable. He had a lower body injury. We don't know what it is. He's been out indefinitely, and Jared Bednar was asked about it, and he said it's not week to week. He said it's longer than that. So they're looking at like month to month at this point. And I don't know what's going on with Mikko Rantanen. I can't find any updates on this guy. Like, I've been trying to find an update on his condition, but the last thing we heard was it's week to week. We know it was that a leg/ankle injury when he caught that rut in the ice. That was kind of hard to watch. His ankle basically turned around, like entirely 360. I know I'm laughing, but it's hard to watch, and you hate to see something like that happen to a player of his caliber. Obviously these are huge injuries. The Avalanche had lost 5 straight prior to them absolutely dumpstering the Nashville Predators the other day. What are your take on them losing Landeskog and Rantanen? At this point, it looks like, maybe for a month or more.
Well, the Rantanen injury is really the one that hurts. I mean, like, that's an 87-point scorer. I mean, this year was trending probably to score upwards of 100, riding shotgun with McKinnon. And it really takes, like, a lot of the dynamics out of their offense. Because now it's a lot of straight-line hockey because it's, Nazem Kadri's number 2. You don't have Alexander Kerfoot anymore, So you're adding guys, and even on defense, like, Tyson Berry's not there. So it's Cale Makar, Samuel Girard,
Eric Johnson.
I think Zadorov got hurt. So it's like...
Yeah, he was banged up, too, as another guy. I mean, like, this poor team,
So it's like... And, like, that they're so top-heavy to begin with that to lose not... Like, even just one part of their top line would be really dangerous. They lose 2/3 of it to leave just Nathan McKinnon playing on the ice. So, I don't know. I thought that top line was going to carry them through the season, but, I mean, when they're not even really playing for the most part, especially when you don't know when your captain's coming back, or, at this point, Mikko Rantanen, I think it really puts a damper on the expectations for the Colorado Avalanche.
Well, let's put it this way. In that 5-game losing streak they had, they lost to Anaheim, Florida, Dallas, Arizona, and Dallas again. They scored 2 goals, 3 goals in an overtime loss, 1 goal, 0 goals, 1 goal. I mean, I know they blitzed Nashville for 9 the other day, and they beat the Blue Jackets for 4-2. But they weren't exactly lighting the league on fire before that in terms of goal scoring, and it's weird because we think of, the Colorado Avalanche like this high-flying, like offensive, dynamic, goal-scoring machine like they were last year. But, I mean, that's like basically 2/3 of where they get most of their goals from. The other third, of course, being Nathan McKinnon. Like you said, they do have Nazem Kadri that can help a little bit. But, I mean, you're really relying on some guys that maybe, can step up. Maybe they don't. I mean, you're relying on guys like Andrei Burakovsky or Jonas Donskoy. I mean, let's put it this way. Mikko Rantanen only played 9 games this season, and he's still tied for 3rd on a team in points right now. If that tells you anything.
Yeah.
So, it's tough because...
I mean, Burakovsky looks like he's fitting in nicely. He's finally getting the chance that he never got in Washington.
He was always playing third fiddle to Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, and Backstrom.
So it's nice to see him getting like the opportunity, and I think he could touch 30 maybe this year if he keeps playing the way he's playing, but that's still not replacing the 87 points and the 230 goal scorers you're losing here. And Rantanen, I think previously was a 40 goal scorer in his career in his first year in the league. So it's like that's a big hole in the lineup to fill. You lose one of these guys, it's a huge hole. You lose both of them
for an extended period of time. It's not like these guys... when Mikko Rantanen's injury first happened, we heard it was day-to-day. Then it was about a week and a half later, and it turned into now he's week-to-week. And skating's a huge part of Rantanen's game. So if this really is as bad as it looked, he's going to come back a little slower than he was. I mean, granted, I know guys come back and they can reach what they were. I mean, we saw it happen with McDavid, when McDavid comes back from his leg injury and he's somehow faster than he was before his leg injury. Doesn't make any sense. The guy comes back and he has a 3rd gear, like a 4th gear even. But when he first comes back, he's going to be a little bit slower. And like you said, in the meantime, you're losing a guy that's a 30 to 40 goal scorer. You're losing your captain in a guy that's a 75-point man in Gabe Landeskog. And this team relies on offense. They're not a defensive team.
No.
I mean, they have a good goaltender in Philip Grubauer, but
right now he's not even playing. You have Frank Kuz.
Frank Kuz. Yeah, I don't know how to say it. Pavel Frank Kuz. I've heard the announcer say it all sorts of different ways, but
I mean, he's been all right for them. I mean, but like he's given up 6 goals in the last 2 games he's played, because I think he played that Nashville game too.
And it's just like, again, the team is not a defensive team.
No. They weren't built to be. They were built to score goals, and when you lose 2/3 of your your elite goal scorers,
I mean, you essentially
kind of in a bind now.
Just lost 80 goals and upwards of 160 points. I mean, they're not out for the season, but
I mean, if they're out until December, like that's a pretty large portion of the season. It's like it says, like if you're out of the playoffs, if you're more than 4 points out of the playoffs by Thanksgiving, chances are you usually don't make the playoffs. St.
Right.
Louis was the exception of the rule, where they won a Stanley Cup after being last place on January 1st. That doesn't happen.
No, that will not happen again, probably for another, I would even say, like 40 to 50 years. You're never going to see a run like that.
So it's like if Colorado really just needs to tread water until they figure out what's going on with Landeskog and Rantanen. And then if they're out long term, like it turns out to be Landeskog's out, it continues to be out indefinitely, and Rantanen just stays out. Do they make a move for somebody? I mean, like, I don't know what they have to give up.
Well, look, it might be a race between them and St. Louis to try to get a goal scorer.
Yeah, and the Central Divisions lost 3 of their top goal scorers on their top teams almost instantly.
Yeah, and I mean, it helps that, again, you never want to root for somebody to be injured, but it does help the Avalanche that other teams are going through similar situations, but it's not ideal. Especially because, the Tarasenko injury, yeah, that sucks. But you know for a fact he's going to be out 5 months. They said we're not even reevaluating him before 5 months. Obviously, if he feels healthy enough, they will, but they kind of have a timetable here. From what we're getting from Rantanen and Landeskog, it doesn't even sound like Jared Bednar knows even of time frame of when they're going to be back. Because like I said, the Rantanen thing went from day to day, then to week. Then they asked Jared Bednar about Landeskog, and he said, I don't even know. He said, it's not week to week. So, it's one of those things. When is he going to come back? Is he going to come back now? Is he going to come back later? And when he comes back, what if he gets hurt again? It's just one of those things.
Yeah, how bad is it?
So, it's tough for those two teams. And a big injury that happened very recently, Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs seemingly falls off a face-off. Maybe he caught a rut. Something happened with his leg. He did the MRI, did not come back good for them. He's out at least 4 weeks. They lose a 94-point producer. They lose,
arguably their best player.
Yeah, the guy that turned John Tavares almost into a 50-goal scorer. How do you think? And again, we're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs here. This is a team that is absolutely loaded with talent. How bad do you think this hurts the team?
Well, I mean, the fact that John Tavares came back into the lineup right around a game or two before this injury helps. So you get John Tavares back in the lineup, so you're not really losing a ton. But I mean, you're still losing arguably your most dynamic player on most nights. I mean, yeah, is Austin Matthews getting points? But like the guy can't score if he's not in Toronto apparently, because
that's a weird stat. Like he's got almost I think it was 3/4 of his goals are at home.
I think it's he scored 13 goals in the year and 11 of them have come at home.
Yeah, something whack like that.
But it's I mean, they still have Austin Matthews, William Nylander, John Tavares, Morgan Riley,
Tyson Barrie
now. They have Alexander Kerfoot who can chip in. So it's does it help? Absolutely not. But do I think it's as big a hole in the lineup as say Gabriel Landeskog or Mikko Rantanen, or both Gabriel Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen
at the same time?
No, I mean I think Toronto will be fine. I think Toronto's biggest issue right now is that they can't. There's no consistency in their game anyway. So an injury really doesn't change the fact that they're not playing good fundamental hockey. They're just not.
Okay, so I want to call Toronto out for something here, and this has nothing to do with Mitch Marner's injury. But this really bothered me. We're recording this, in case this doesn't get uploaded today, we're recording this about 8 p.m. on November 11th. So, earlier today, Toronto Maple Leafs waive Michael Hutchinson. Okay? Send this guy, put him on waivers. They don't want anything to do with him. They have mistreated, and I have no personal allegiance towards Michael Hutchinson at all. He's never been on any teams that I really particularly care for. But they have mistreated, oh, that's not true, he's a Jet, and I like the Jets. But anyway, they have mistreated him so badly. He played every second half of a back-to-back. And if you watch that game against the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't care what anybody says. They left this guy out to dry on every single goal that went in the back of the net. Okay? And that defense is way too talented to be that passive. It was embarrassing. They let the Blackhawks control the game. They sat back. They let the Blackhawks enter the zone. There was no puck side attack. There was no pressure on the shooters. That defense is too young, too fast, and too talented to be sitting back like that and letting the Blackhawks basically do whatever they want. I mean, if you watch Patrick Kane's goal, he walks in, fakes a shot, loses the puck, gets it back, and goes to the backhand, and nobody touches the guy, okay? And just the mistreatment that Toronto gave their backup goaltender this year, it's like, come on. It's embarrassing as an organization.
They've been looking for a backup to Freddie Anderson for seasons now. They can't seem to find the right fit. The only one that fit that looked good was Curtis McElhaney, and they let him go.
Who's arguably the best backup in the league.
Exactly. So, but then they had Antoine Bibeau.
Garrett Sparks.
Garrett Sparks was never great. I mean, I never really cared for the guy.
He was average.
Like, Antoine Bibeau was okay. I mean, but Michael Hutchinson had been pretty decent for them. I mean, they made a move for him last year to play this position, and now because for some reason this team's not buying into Mike Babcock's system or idea, then they're just playing this like fly by like loosey goosey defense. Who they don't really care. They're looking to fly the zone as fast as they can. That they left him out to dry. I mean, they leave Freddie Anderson out to dry most nights, and Freddie Anderson's just too damn good to want to let it happen. He'll regularly make upwards of 35 to 40 saves on a night. And a lot of them are high quality because they're pretty lax defensively, and they just have one of the elite netminders in the NHL carrying them right now.
It really bothers me because, I have a soft spot for goalies. I always have, but just the way that this organization has mistreated their backup goalie in Michael Hutchinson, I sincerely hope he gets picked up by somebody. I don't think he will, but I can't wait until the Leafs bring up whatever other backup they're going to bring up, and then he plays every second half of a back-to-back against teams like Montreal or Chicago and is getting lit up for 6 goals because Morgan Rielly looks lost right now. I don't know what his problem is, but like I said, they're too young, and if you're an older defense, I can understand maybe playing a little bit back and not wanting to get beat wide. This defense is too young and too fast to be doing what they're doing, and they need to figure it out. I don't know why that bothered me so much, but Toronto needs to figure it out, and their mistreatment of Hutchinson just really left a bad taste in my mouth, and it really bothered me. I'm sorry to go on a rant, like a tangent like that, but I mean that's Bush League. I mean,
Toronto they need to be better is really what it is. Like, everyone talks about how many years in this press cycle have we gotten now? It's like, this is the year Toronto finally does it. They've added all these pieces. And for once in the offseason, Toronto actually did really overhaul pretty much their whole team and address a lot of the issues people thought they had. I mean, they managed to keep Jake Muzzin, who's been their best defender. They need to find a way to extend, because without him, that defense is not that great.
Without him, that defense has no bite. I'm sorry, I love Morgan Rielly and I love Tyson Barrie. Without Jake Muzzin, that defense is so soft. There's no anger in their game. There's no hits. There's no body contact. I mean, that's not what their game is. That's not what Rielly and Barry's game is, and I'm not expecting them to turn into a Nicholas Kronwall, but without that extra threat of Jake Muzzin, that defense is just, it's like cotton candy. They're still probably tough to play against, but it's not, there's no fear of they won't win a cup with that defense.
No,
because they'll get bullied.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the Leafs have been getting bullied all year. I mean, these guys are getting high hit, they're getting slashed, freaking breaking Tavares' finger, nobody does anything. Austin Matthews getting hit high in the neutral zone, nobody cares.
The next night, someone gets hit high again, cutting through the middle of the ice. Tyson Barrie got hit high, nobody does anything.
I mean, we can talk about the Leafs, all day with their weaknesses, and I do want to do a podcast just dedicated to talking about, not specifically the entire podcast about the Leafs. I do want to talk about the Leafs and their soft play, but maybe we'll get to the end of it at this one. If not, definitely maybe next week we can get to that because that's a huge topic. But I want to kind of move on before we get too lost in the sauce as it is. We're going to talk about our hometown boys here, the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers. Very excited to talk about these two guys. We've kind of been holding off on the Rangers because they didn't play a lot of hockey, but they've kind of caught up now. So let's kind of get into it. We'll start with the Islanders here. Currently on a 12-game point streak. They sit at 12-3-1, 25 points, second in the Metro behind the Washington Capitals. I obviously have a lot of opinions, as I'm sure you do, about the Rangers, but I want to hear your opinion about the Islanders from an outside perspective. I know you do watch a lot of their games, but from a non-fan perspective, what are you seeing out of this team?
Well, I mean, it's like the same thing we saw with them last year. It's just like it's the system. Like they're playing a really, really solid defensive system. There's a lot of structure in their game, and I mean, Barzal looks like his rookie Matt Barzal, 85-point Matt Barzal, will still manage to play structured, good defensive hockey. So there's a lot to be excited about here. I mean, their goaltending's been good. Varlamov's been maybe not as stellar as Robin Leonard was, but he's still been good. And Thomas Greiss has been fantastic for them all season. I mean, he hasn't lost his last 6 starts or something in regulation. He's like 5-0-1 or something crazy, because they've pretty much split that 12-game point streak evenly. So, I mean, and they're beating good teams too. Like it's not like they're beating up on weak teams. Like St. Louis, they beat Winnipeg. Arizona's a good team. Tampa Bay's a good team. Buffalo's been hot and they beat them 1-0. Florida's a good team. I mean, the team they lost to is Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's been playing their best hockey of the season recently, despite their record. So it's, they look scary. Like they look like a formidable team because the way they're playing defense now is the way teams try to tighten up at the end of the season, whereas at that point the Islanders have been playing that way all season. So there's not going to be any big adjustment to their game come playoff time. They're just going to be ready to play long, grinded out defensive hockey, and that's going to be tough for a lot of teams come playoff time.
So this streak started with a 3-2 overtime win against St. Louis in a game that they absolutely did not deserve to win. I'll put it that way. They got outplayed badly for most of that game. Brock Nelson got a sneaky shot under the arm of Binnington late in the game, and then they tied it up off Matt Barzal. He tried to pass it to the middle, and it went in off one of the Blues. I'm convinced at this point that he's doing that on purpose, though, because the amount of times that I've seen him do that, where he'll intentionally pass it off a defender's stick and it goes in the net. I mean, he's done that like a good 5 or 6 times since he's came into the league. I'm convinced he's doing that on purpose. And if he's not, he's doing a really good job of making it seem like that. And then they go on this run. I mean, obviously their winning streak ended with a 3-2 overtime loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which, by the way, it was a 4-3 overtime loss, I'm sorry. They had a 3-goal lead in the third period. They blew a 3-goal lead in the third period. Lost 4-3 in overtime, which that sucked. But then they come back. They play a strong game against Florida, which Greiss absolutely stole that game. They didn't deserve to win the Florida game either. Greiss stole that game. But it's really interesting because it's pretty much what you'd expect. The power play is not great. Power play sucked last year. We all know that. They're 15th in the league for goals for. They're first in the league for goals against. But they're 20th in the league for shots against. And it's really an interesting stat because when you watch these games, Greiss and Varlamov are making upwards of 30 saves a night. They're letting in 32.1 shots against a night. They're not really good at limiting shots. What they're good at doing is limiting shots from the middle, and they give up a lot of shots from the outside. And I think teams are kind of picking up on that, which is maybe why teams are just taking so many shots, because they know they just have to throw it on net and try to grind it out and get that cheap goal. So it's interesting because you would think they're dominating shot blocking team. It's not really. I mean, they're letting up a lot of shots. It's just they're very good at limiting
the dangerous ones.
Unfortunately, Brocktober is over, and now it's no Brock November.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I have such a love-hate relationship with Brock Nelson. That overtime loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins was almost entirely his fault because he turned it over twice behind his own net. But yeah, Barzal, Bailey, and Nelson leading the team in points. Brassard's been super hot lately. He has 5 goals on the year. And it's not like the Islanders have been without injuries too. I mean, Leddy missed a couple games. Komarov's been hurt. Martin and Kunakl are both out 4 to 6 months, so that hurts really bad, especially the Martin injury. Eberle was out. He just came back very recently. They have holes, in the lineup just because of the injuries, but they've had guys that came up and stepped up. Cole Bardreau, I loved the way he played when he was up here. I'm very sad that he didn't stay up here. I wish we would have waived Michael Dowcole and kept Bardreau up here. Ross Johnston has stepped in. Oliver Wahlstrom, before he got sent down, was stepped in. Noah Dobson has looked great. And one of the guys that I specifically pointed out here was Devon Tays, has played 16 games. He has 2 goals, 8 assists, 10 points. I love the way Devon Tays is playing. He's such a simple guy. I mean, his game is very simple. It's very chip the puck in, make the smart play. He's not fancy. He's never going to be. But I think he's playing fantastic. He's got 8 assists on the year. He's leading the team in assists. And overall, I mean, I think you pretty much summed it up. I mean, it's New York Islanders hockey at this point, which is crazy to say because for so long the team's MO was just trying to score as many goals as you can. But I mean, Barry Trotz is a miracle worker. I don't know what he does. Mitch Korn, I don't know what he does with his goalies, but Mitch Korn is a friggin' genius. Whatever he does with his guys, I mean, I wish I knew, because I wish I could have Mitch Korn coaching me in life. But yeah, and they're not beating like schlub teams. I mean, yeah, you have 2 slam dunks against the Ottawa Senators. No offense, Sens fans, but you have 2 slam dunks against the Ottawa Senators. You play the Blue Jackets, who are maybe not as strong, but then you have teams like Philly, Tampa Bay, St. Louis, Winnipeg, who's doing more than people thought they would. So it's an exciting time to be an Islanders fan. I just hope they keep it up. I still think the team needs a top 6 winger and a top 4 defenseman to really be a cup contender. But I think right now the team is doing what it needs to do. Hopefully, we can just keep, if not the point streak going, just, don't go on an extended losing streak, because that'll really hurt you down the stretch. And yeah, as much as there is to talk about the Islanders, there really isn't. It's just it's simple hockey. I mean, it's Barry Trotz hockey. I mean, that's all you can really say. So we are going to move on. I'm very excited to get your take on the New York Rangers, because I have some opinions as well, but I want to hear it. They're currently 7-6-2. They sit at 6th in the Metro with 16 points. Let's hear it. What's going on in Rangers Town?
I mean, they've been pretty much what we expected, right? Like, they have the ability, they have a pretty explosive offense, the ability to score goals with, Artemi Panarin and, Mika Zibanejad when he was healthy.
Well, they're 7th in the league for goals for.
So it's like they can score goals, but they have 4 rookies on defense, I'm pretty sure. And sometimes it's just a Chinese fire drill in the defensive zone. It's just like we're running in circles. Like, I don't know. I mean, Jacob Trouba's pretty much come as advertised. He's what we expected. He struggled a little bit, but like the whole team's kind of been up and down. Tony DeAngelo is playing for a brand new contract because he does not want to sign another arbitration deal. So he's playing great. I mean, he's been offensive. He's been dynamic. Adam Fox has looked like the best player on the ice most nights. He's out there. He's very calm, very smooth, makes the right play with the puck, isn't afraid to get involved offensively. Artemi Panarin also comes as advertised. Point per game, dynamic, electric. Plays a lot more defense than I thought people give him credit for. The guy actually does back check and is willing to hound the puck into his own end. So, I mean, I think that more just comes from like his ability he just wants the puck. Like, I don't think he's any commitment to being a 200-foot hockey player. I think he just wants the puck, and like that's fine because it means he plays a 200-foot game. Power play's been good. The penalty kill's been okay, not great, but the biggest thing I don't understand is some of the lineup decisions we've been making. I mean,
I know you have opinions on this. Let's hear it.
I mean, Michael Haley and Greg McKegg making the team out of camp made almost no sense to me. When Vitaly Kravtsov played well enough, I thought, to earn a roster spot. I mean, Philip Hedl, he didn't look great in training camp. They sent him down. Now he looks like an absolutely dominant number 2 center. I mean, he's come up. He's got 4 goals and not 4 goals. Is it? I think it's 4 goals in 6 games or something since he's come up from Hartford. Looks absolutely dominant. He looks stronger, which I like. He's only was down there for a couple weeks, but I don't know. He looks stronger. He's harder to knock off the puck. He's better. He's more responsible positionally without the puck. But Vitaly Kravtsov went back to Russia. I'm not really all that panicked about it. He'll be all right, I think, in the long run. It was hard for him to adjust to North America, especially when he gets sent down and then you get misused, and then, So it's okay. Shishjorkin got sent down because he was not going to usurp Henrik Lundqvist or Alexander Georgiev this year, but he's been absolutely lights out. Like unreal numbers, like sub 2 goals against average, like a 9,400 save percentage or something crazy in his games. So that's good, but like the actual lineup didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, Elias Anderson hasn't gotten a fair shot at any significant ice time, and he ended up as a healthy scratch the other night. And it's like he's the 7th overall pick. Shouldn't he have at least got? I thought he at least should have got a crack at the number 2 center spot at a camp because I thought he looked good, but he got slotted number 4 because it's impossible to knock Brett Howden out of the top 9 for some reason, even when he's earned it. And I like Brett Howden a lot. I think Brett Howden's a good hockey player. But like even when he's struggling, he is cemented in that number 3 spot, and he is not moving at all. Like I'm convinced David Quinn will give him power play time before he ever gives Elias Anderson any like sniff at a power play. There's that. I think Ryan Strome has actually stepped up big time playing with Panarin.
He's second on the team in points. He's got 16 points right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with playing with Artemi Panarin. Because Ryan Strome, let's be honest, isn't a normal center where he's going to facilitate play. So he's benefiting from a winger in Artemi Panarin who can facilitate play like a center. He gets the puck, and then everybody else gets open. And then you wait for Artemi Panarin to make the play with the puck.
Well, I made that comment too. I was surprised that he was playing center because his last year on the Islanders, when he got moved to wing, was really when he started to open up and actually be an effective player. So when I saw that he was playing center for the Rangers and doing well at it, I was a little surprised. But, so are you, you're not saying that he's not a good player, but you're saying that he's benefiting from an offensive engine on his wing.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Zibanejad is an offensive engine, so Chris Kreider benefited from playing with Zibanejad because he's looked absolutely lost without Mika Zibanejad this season.
Okay, I want to talk about a lot of things with this team, but let's talk about Kreider specifically real quick because he is a guy that a lot of fans are saying is not going to be on the team come at the end of the season. Right now he's got 4 goals, 6 assists, and 9 points. How are you feeling about Chris Kreider? I mean, he's been a lifetime Ranger. He's been on his team his whole life. And a lot of guys are saying that because his contract is up, that he's probably going to get shipped out. How are you feeling about Chris Kreider?
I just think, like, as much as I like Chris Kreider, I don't think he's ever going to live up to the contract expectations that he's going to ask for, the comparables. Because, let's be honest, he's never hit 30 goals in his career. He's hit 28 twice, last year being one of them where he scored 26 in the first half and scored 2 in the last 2 months of the season. So it's like, granted, the team fell apart around him, but like, isn't that where guys are supposed to step up? And especially when you consider yourself a leader of the team, isn't that where you're supposed to step up and find a way to produce? And that's what Zibanejad did. Zibanejad stepped up and found a way to produce. He put up 75 to 77, I think it was 77 points with literally nobody. So, I mean, I don't buy that argument. Good players are going to produce no matter what. And leaders are going to find a way to, either lead by example. And I really just, sometimes it looks like Kreider's just out for a skate. Like, he doesn't look like he's trying all that hard. And I just think he'll be gone. I think he'll be gone at the end of the season entirely just because the Rangers aren't going to want to pay him the money he's gonna ask for, and he really hasn't earned it. It's like Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes didn't earn the money he got from Philly.
He got a massive contract from Philly.
He's never broken the 50-point plateau in his entire career, but he's making $7.5 million a season now. So Kreider's never hit the 30-goal mark, but he's going to be making like $7 to $7.5 million a season probably, and that's just not something the Rangers are willing to commit to long term. When we have guys like Vitaly Kravtsov, and we have players who are going to need contracts, Capo Caco's going to need a contract, and Capo Caco's look better now, more confident now than he has all season, because he's scoring.
Okay, I do want to talk about Capo Caco. Before we get to that, spitballing, where can you see Kreider going, and what kind of returns are you looking for out of a Chris Kreider?
I mean,
like, what would you be happy with getting in return?
I think a second or more, a young prospect. I mean, I could see apparently the Rangers are interested in Jesse Puljujarvi out of Edmonton. I could see a Kreider for Puljujarvi trade, because Kreider adds an element of speed to Edmonton to complement Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and it also adds an element to their game that's a little heavier, who's with a little more goal scoring flair. And so it adds a talented net front presence to their power play instead of just having what used to be Milan Lucic there. They can add something of a comparable skill set, but who's better.
Like an upgraded Zach Cassian.
Pretty much. And I think Jesse Puljujarvi might, with a change of scenery, be better. Might have reach his potential in New York. I mean, I don't know if he'd be on the roster like right. I mean, he'd have to be because there's the hole now. There'd be a hole in the lineup to fill, but I just think like that could be a move. I think a second round pick, a first round pick. Like the Rangers, like I don't think the Rangers are in it anymore to hoard picks. I think they're at the point in the rebuild where they're looking to not, even if they don't make the playoffs this year, they're looking to add pieces that'll help them make the playoffs next year, as opposed to constantly getting draft picks and saying, oh, next year.
So are you trading Kreider if come trade deadline the Rangers are either in a playoff spot or within 2 points? Are you still comfortable with moving out Chris Kreider?
I mean, I'd rather them trade Chris Kreider now than take the situation of the deadline that we've had the last couple of years, because it creates a lot of unnecessary headaches on a team that's specifically a very young team that doesn't really know how to handle media pressure like that. So it can be really disorienting and probably really deflating for a team when when you're taking one of your better players into the deadline like that, and it's a guy that like is, for better or worse, a leader in the locker room. I think the sooner you get it done, the better. This way, it's not as like it's just not a weight on the team. It doesn't get to act as a millstone around the team's neck like the way the Kevin Hayes situation did or the Ryan McDonough situation. You know, this way we get it all nice and cleaned up, and the Rangers then can figure out what they want to be for the rest of the season, as opposed to not really sure because we're carrying Kreider's contract and Chris Kreider in the lineup through to the deadline. And let's say what if the Rangers are competing there, but they still need to move the Kreider contract because they're not going to sign it. They don't want to lose him for nothing. So then what do? Do you move Kreider do you trade a rental for a rental? Like,
right.
You end up in a really weird spot where like, are you pretenders or are you like the real deal? And it's hard to tell. This way, at least if he's gone, the Rangers can tell, are they the real deal or a pretender going into the deadline beforehand, than trying to figure out the day of.
Right. No, I agree. I think either way, I think he should be traded just for the contract at this point, if anything. Capo Caco has been very vocal during his time with the New York Rangers so far. He was very vocal about being hard on himself, which is, I think, a good thing to hear, instead of complaining about the coaches or his ice time or the city, like you saw with Jesse Puljujarvi. He was very hard on himself, saying he wasn't having a lot of fun because he wasn't doing what he thought he could do. He's scored a couple goals lately. He's got, I think, 3 goals now. Most of them have come in the last 4 or 5 games. What are your thoughts on how Capo Caco is playing?
I just think it took a little while to get adjusted. I mean, it's not like, not for nothing, but like Jack Hughes is American, playing for an American franchise. If he's playing anywhere outside of Montreal, he speaks the language. He has a basic understanding of the culture.
He's been playing on that size ice his whole life.
Yeah, exactly. So Capo Caco coming over, doesn't speak the language, doesn't know anybody. Like, it's hard. He doesn't get to see his family. Like,
he's playing in a huge market.
He's playing in New York.
Probably the biggest market in the United States.
I mean,
he's
playing on Broadway, man. Like, he's under the bright lights, like the big city, the bright lights, like the world's most famous arena. Jack Hughes gets a little sheltered because he's playing in, like, let's not be like mean, but like it's Newark. Like, it's not like Toronto. It's not like Austin.
They don't get the media coverage in New Jersey that the Rangers get.
No, and that's makes sense. I mean,
and again, it's not a knock on the Devils as an organization. I mean, even the Islanders don't. Even the Islanders during their win streak got maybe a couple tweets, but New York it's there, man. Like, you're an Original Six franchise, the biggest city in the United States market
this year, and
right, and you're not a dying team anymore.
So I mean, I think the Rangers is something really interesting where they brought over, I think it was either Tuomo or Jarkko Ruutu, I don't remember which one, who's acting as a Finnish scout. They brought him over and had him spend a week with Capo Caco to help him get adjusted to the NHL. Spend a little time so he could speak in his own language. Help him get adjusted to life in North America, and I think they speak pretty regularly now after that. So it's like, that was a really big step for me, that the organization wasn't just gonna like try and figure out. They like took a proactive step to be like, no, we want him. We're gonna make him comfortable. We're gonna make an effort to make sure he can be the player we know he can be, because not all of it's performance related. Like, it's not always what happens on the ice. Sometimes your life off the ice affects your ability to play on the ice, and if he's lonely and sad and homesick, he's not gonna want to go to the rink every day. So the Rangers making him try to really make him feel at home I think is important, and it shows. Like he looks more at home on the ice. He's more confident with the puck. He's making plays with the puck, and I think this is actually where you're going to start to see him become a dominant player for the Rangers. Like his fit on the line with Brett Howden and Brendan Lemieux works because Brendan Lemieux's protecting him, which I think is adorable. It's every time someone touches Kako, Lemieux comes flying out of the, nowhere. But like that's his job. But
what's the benefit of having a player like him?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's good, and eventually, if we do trade Kreider or he earns it, he'll move into the top 6 and still be a dominant player. I mean, you've seen it on the power play. He can play with the best players on the team on the top power play unit. Like he's playing with Zibanejad and Panarin and Kreider and Trouba, and he doesn't look out of place. Like he looks like he fits. So I think it was just all a matter of time getting used to it and the confidence. And now that he scored a couple goals, he's probably feeling better about himself. You're going to see him start to play better, more consistent hockey. His ice time's been going up steadily. I mean, he's getting more opportunities in big situations, whereas Elias Anderson has been getting less ice time as the night goes on. And as David Quinn keeps saying, it's a flow of the game thing, but I don't understand how it's a flow of the game thing when he sits for stretches of 7 minutes and 5 minutes in the third period when aren't you supposed to be rolling 4 lines in a tie hockey game? And the game against the Panthers, it's 5-5 in overtime, and he's not playing at all. So it's like, what? You're double shifting your top line to try to get the goal instead of just rolling 4 lines and hoping for and trying to play a complete hockey game. I don't know. David Quinn's an interesting guy. The fact that Brendan Smith is playing forward.
Yeah, and then full-time forward Brendan Smith.
And then playing defense on the penalty kill. Whereas, he's doing okay. He doesn't look terrible, but it's like, why? That's the only question. It's just like, why? It's Brendan Smith. If he didn't earn a spot on the defense out of camp, why in God's green earth did we shift him to forward? When we had other forwards who could have made the team out of camp.
Yeah, no, that was...
he lost his job to Libor Hayek and Adam Fox and Tony DeAngelo. It's like, okay, so did Mark Stahl. But we're not trying to play Mark Stahl at forward.
Yeah, well, Mark Stahl's not playing at all right now, but that's besides...
Well, he's got the night. Yeah, he had surgery for an ankle infection. Yeah, after blocking a shot, from what I understand. But even then, he was a healthy scratch for 2 games. And Ryan Lindgren stepped in, and he looks like he never missed a beat. So it's like he earned a spot at a camp, but we didn't have room for him, so we didn't play him on forward. We sent him to Hartford. Instead of waiving Brendan Smith, we shifted him to 4th-line winger.
Yeah, that's...
What? I just don't understand, some of these roster decisions, but, I mean, whatever. They look okay in the last... They've had a pretty decent stretch in the last week, so...
What I will say, I've noticed that Kako's holding on to the puck more.
Yeah.
When he first started, first couple of games, he didn't look scared, but he almost looked like he really didn't want the puck on his stick that much. He was making very quick plays, trying to get rid of it as soon as possible. He almost looked like he was willing to make a bad play to avoid a turnover. He was willing to just sky it out into the neutral zone instead of making a breakout pass just to avoid that turnover. But these last couple of games, especially on the power play, and especially in overtime when he got a shift or two, he's looked leaps and bounds more comfortable. He's holding on to the puck. He's making a smart play. I think it was in overtime. At one point, he had an opportunity to take a shot, but he read the play. He saw that if he took the shot, it was going to be a 2-on-1 the other way, and he skated out of the zone and reset the play. I mean, he's looked so smart with the puck lately, and he's looked so good with his decision-making. He's leaps and bounds getting more comfortable every day, and that's a scary thing for this division. Because if Kaapo Kakko gets comfortable and he's taking those shots that he knows he can hit, I mean, he can really shoot the puck.
Well, I mean, it's scary for the Metro now because both him and Jack Hughes are both looking comfortable. Jack Hughes is on fire.
Yeah.
In the dumpster fire that is New Jersey this season, he's on fire. He's leaps and bounds the best player on the ice some nights. So, I mean, the Devils are bad. Jack Hughes isn't. He's proving that he's good. He's exactly who we all thought he was going to be. And Kaapo Kakko's doing the same thing.
Yeah, and if Kakko gets comfortable enough to be holding that puck to take that extra second to let the guy get open for that better pass, I mean, if you get a line of Kakko on fire being with Panarin and being centered by Zibanejad, I mean, that might be one of the best lines in the National Hockey League. I mean, that might be ridiculous.
It'll be very talented, that's for sure. I mean,
it's scary. I mean, it's scary for the rest of the division. There's one more thing I want to talk about with the team. Georgiev and Lundqvist. Georgiev played, I think, 3 straight games before Lundqvist came in and played the last 2. how are you feeling about the goaltending situation right now?
I don't think it's much of a controversy to say that Henrik Lundqvist is kind of starting to take a back seat. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a 37-year-old goaltender being replaced by a 23-year-old goaltender who's getting ready to enter his physical prime, who's playing good hockey. Like, Alexander Georgiev has earned the starts he's gotten. It's such that we're not just giving it to him because we want to rest Lundqvist. It's like he's earned his play. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets more starts than Lundqvist by the end of the year. If it's like a 55-45 kind of split. Well, it's 90, but still, you know what I'm saying? Something in that area, like something similar to that, where like Georgiev plays 55% of the games because right now, like Lundqvist turned back the clock and had an unbelievable performance against Carolina, made 45 saves, looked like 25-year-old Henrik Lundqvist again, but like that's not the norm. Like you can't count on that every night. He's 37 years old and he's played a lot of hockey.
He's played a lot of hockey and he's seen a lot of shots.
So whereas Alexander Georgiev's young, is seeing a lot of shots playing behind a pretty bad Rangers team last year, but he looked good. He looked good last year. He looks good this year, and with Shesterkin breathing down your neck, like you have to be good. And right now the Rangers goaltending has been pretty. Like the last stretch has been very, very good. It's won them games. I mean, they got blown up by the Bruins and they got dumpstered by Ottawa, but like. Which is supposed to be a free dunk, but the Rangers decided to lose 6-2 to Ottawa. So like go figure. But then they come out and they beat Tampa Bay and they beat Buffalo, and then they beat Carolina, and they have an absolute like barn burner with the Florida Panthers and lose 6-5 in a shootout. Like, so that one wasn't a great outing. I mean, 6-5 is absolutely not the way you want to play. But beating Carolina 4-1, they beat the Lightning 4-1. They beat Buffalo pretty, not like handily, but they beat Buffalo. So it's like they've beaten good teams, and as much as like Tampa Bay doesn't look as dominant as they were last year, they're still pretty. I mean, it's still big wins in your sails.
It's Lightning 4-1, Nashville 2-1, which I mean to hold that Nashville team to 1 goal. Very impressive defensive outing. They went on back-to-back nights, which is hard to do, especially considering they were home against Detroit, 5-1 win, and away. So they had to take a trip down to Raleigh, take a 4-2 win there, and then, like you said, 5-6 loss to the Panthers. So, I mean, these are good hockey teams, and they're playing strong games against good hockey teams.
I mean, the shootout loss to the Panthers isn't a strong defensive outing, but that's still a strong hockey game. Like, they managed to take one of the more dynamic offensive teams in the league with Alexander Barkov, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Evgeny Dadonov.
That first line is ridiculous.
And push it and go goal for goal with them for 3 periods. I mean, they couldn't beat the Rangers with manpower on the ice. They won in a shootout. So for all intents and purposes, the Rangers played them to a tie.
Yeah, I mean, essentially. Yeah, I mean, they're playing a lot of good hockey right now. 2 quick points I want to ask before you move on. One, if Igor Shesterkin is looking as good as he is, next year might be a bit awkward. If you have Georgiev, if Lundqvist doesn't retire and Shesterkin wants to come up, how are you handling that situation there?
Well, I mean, you can't trade Henrik Lundqvist, right? Like that's just this is the penultimate year of his contract. So next year is the final year of that contract where he's making $8.5 million. Nobody's taking that contract. Not for a 38-year-old Henrik Lundqvist.
And Lundqvist has an NTC anyway.
Right.
So if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going anywhere.
I think Lundqvist needs to kind of slowly take his time out of the spotlight. Like, he needs to gracefully exit when he's ahead of the game. I don't think he should retire this offseason. But I think, I don't think an extra year in the AHL would be terrible for Shesterkin's development. I mean, he played how many years in the KHL? So he'd be 26 when he comes out, 25 when he comes out. Same age as Henrik Lundqvist when he came over from Sweden. So
right.
It's not like we'd waste his best years where, because he'd be coming into a team that would be hopefully very competitive in 2 years. So I don't think it'd be the worst thing. And then at that point you have to figure out if Lundqvist retires, then it's fine. But then if he doesn't, you just let him walk. And then you have the conversation with Georgiev and Shesterkin. Like, Georgiev's would be the entrenched goaltender. Like, he'd probably get the first crack at the starting job.
And then that's going to be a pit fight. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the Islanders last year were very successful with the splitting goaltenders, and they're very successful this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think a little healthy competition won't hurt anybody, but at some point I think somebody needs to be able to take the reins. And if the Islanders, that was Robin Leonard at some point last year. He became the guy, especially in the playoffs. So I think as long as they sort that out at some point, then I don't think it'll be a problem. But I think the biggest issue is how awkward it's going to be to handle the Henrik Lundqvist situation because, let's be honest, the guy's the face of the franchise. He's
earned his retirement in New York.
He was the New York Rangers for how many years? I mean, those teams are good, but without Henrik Lundqvist, I don't think they're nearly as good as they were.
First ballot Hall of Famer.
Easy. One of the top 10 goaltender of all time.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's the greatest goaltender the Rangers have ever had. Without a doubt. Most wins, most shutouts. Like, he's...
What was it, like 8 straight 30-win seasons or something like that?
He's won... It was more than that. He won 30 games. He's won 20 games in 11 of his 12 seasons in the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy's easily a first ballot Hall of Famer.
So that'll be an interesting situation. And then the last little bit on the Rangers, you predicted them to make the playoffs in the wild card. How are you feeling about that prediction?
I don't know if I'm so... There are teams that I think have been stronger than I thought they'd be, but I think they might start to fade. I mean, Montreal might be in it for the long haul. You can never count Carey Price out. And Keith Kincaid's looked pretty good in his outings. But, I mean, I think Buffalo might fade. I don't know how deep that team is. I mean, Ralph Kruger's got them playing really good hockey, but I still don't believe in that goaltending tandem of Linus Ullmark and Carter Hutton.
No.
I still think Carter Hutton's been playing well, but, like, I still don't... I'm not buying it.
It's not sustainable, I don't think. Because it wasn't sustainable last year.
Exactly. So I don't see that. I mean...
And I don't think the Lightning are going to be as bad as they've been, so I don't anticipate them being that low either.
No.
So,
I mean, Ottawa and Detroit are pretty much right where we thought they'd be.
Yeah.
Just Detroit's worse than Ottawa, somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, if I, could I see the Rangers making a wild card? Yeah. I mean, because Pittsburgh has been kind of mediocre. They've been on a bit of a heater, but they've been kind of mediocre. Columbus has been about where we expected them to be.
Did you see the Nick Foligno suspension?
Yeah, well, I mean, granted, it's his first time suspension, but it's just a dumb play.
I mean, you could tell, I think he thought Belmar was going to step more into the middle of the ice, because I think he wanted to deliver the hit through the shoulder, and then, like, once he didn't move, I think he just committed and was like, well, I have nothing else to do, so he just, like, threw his elbow at him.
The Devils have been worse than everyone thought they were, so that's helping.
You know what's awkward about the Devils, too, is that PK Subban looks really, really out of place. Like, that trade looks almost terrible, because
he hasn't
PK
adjusted yet, for sure. I
he
mean,
looks so, like, timid to make plays, whereas, like, the PK Subban everybody knows and loves is aggressive and
flamboyant, aggressive, like, playmaking defenseman.
But, like, he looks almost like he doesn't want the puck. I mean, Jack Hughes looks good now. Taylor Hall looks almost disinterested on some nights.
Yeah, but, I mean, the fact that they're not doing as well, I mean, that helps the Rangers a little bit. Like, I could, honestly, if the Rangers' defense can... if the Rangers' defense can be a little bit more consistent, I could see them sneaking a wild card, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the team is going to be talented enough, especially if Zibanejad comes back. I think that'll help the center depth. I can see them sneaking out that wild card. We're going to move on to the last team we're going to talk about today. We're running a bit on time, so we're not going to talk about Toronto this week. We'll do that next week. But, we have plenty of time here to talk about a team that you have been quoted as saying the best team in Canada. Vancouver Canucks currently sit 9-6-3, 21 points, third in the Pacific. They've struggled really as of late. They're 1-3-1 in the last 5. But you did say that they were the best team in Canada. What leads you to say that?
I mean, before going into that 1-3-1 stretch, yeah, they were the best team in Canada. I mean, they looked better than the Maple Leafs.
They're way more consistent than the Maple Leafs.
Well,
I give you that
they were
for
consistent,
sure.
And they have the talent. They were matching teams up front with talent. I mean, JT Miller's on an absolute tear. Elias Pettersson's exactly who we thought he was. Brock Besser's exactly who we thought he was. Quinn Hughes looks dynamite. And the goaltending's been really good. I mean, Thatcher Demko is looking like heir apparent to Jacob Markstrom, so that's going to create an interesting situation. I mean, granted, Markstrom's played 12 games to Demko's 6, but, I mean, in 18 games, he's got 6 starts, and he's looked really good in all those starts. And Markstrom's also looked really good.
He's got a sub 2 goals against average. He's got 1.99 and 9.33.
Yeah, so he looks, I mean, to say he looks good is underrated. Tyler Myers looks better than a lot of people gave him credit for. I remember a lot of people talking about that contract. I remember we talked about that contract, and I thought they overpaid for him. But he looks like a number 1 defenseman out there, and he's playing like one. And they just look good. Like, Bo Horvat fits in. Jake Virtanen hasn't looked all that bad this year. I mean, they've made some questionable roster decisions from what I've seen from Canucks fans on Twitter, but I mean, when you're going to argue with Travis Green's got them playing great hockey right now.
In a very, in a division that's looking a lot more competitive than I think. I specifically, actually, I take that back. It's not looking more competitive than I gave it credit for, but the teams right now are a bit more balanced than I thought they were going to be. Obviously, we knew the Kings were going to be bad. The Sharks were as bad as we thought they were. For some reason, everyone kept giving them credit, and me and you thought they were going to be hot trash, and they are hot trash. The Ducks have fell off. The Coyotes are.
Well, the Coyotes are interesting because they're like the Islanders. There's not a lot of like offensive like firepower.
No.
It's just they're buying into us. Like they look good as of recent. They're more or less bought into a system, and like that system is really carrying them through games. And they've gotten great goaltending from Darcy Kemper. Anyway,
but then there's the Knights. But I'm saying, the divisions. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be a dogfight for those top three. I don't think they're gonna get any wild card spots, but it's gonna be a dogfight for those top three. So I guess what I'm trying to say it's a top heavy division, and they're competing against teams like the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers right now. And yeah, no, like I said last week, I'm actually excited to watch a Vancouver Canucks hockey game, which I cannot have said since 2011.
Yeah.
Since 2011, I wanted nothing to do with the Canucks. I thought they were boring. They were slow. There was just nothing interesting about this team. I mean, Pettersson's got 21 points so far this year. Miller's got 19. Miller's been huge for them. And, I mean, we all knew that Miller was a good player, but I think he's kind of been overshadowed a lot. I mean, when he was with the Rangers, he was being overshadowed by a guy like, Mika Zibanejad. He played on the Lightning. I mean, it's easy to get lost in that roster, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
You get overshadowed by your Braden Points, your Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos. So I think he's been overshadowed a lot of his career, and now he's getting the chance to really be a top 6 every situation guy, power play, penalty kill. And that's really the interesting part about this team is with all this offensive firepower, you got Brock Besser, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Bo Horvat, Quinn Hughes. It's their defense that's carrying them right now. They're 6th in the league for goals against. And like you said, a lot of that comes down to the goaltending as well, but I don't know. They've been struggling as of late, but it's just, you look at this team up and down the roster, and I really don't think you can point at a weakness in this roster other than maybe a little bit of the offensive depth. But, I mean, you're getting contributions really right now up and down the lineup. And I think Bo Horvat stepped into that captain role and has been phenomenal for them.
Oh, yeah. He's exactly what we thought he'd be. I mean, this team is a lot better than people thought they were going to be.
I wish I gave them more credit. I apologize, Canucks fans. I wish I gave you guys more credit.
I mean, they're the opposite of the New Jersey Devils. The Devils had all these expectations coming this season, and the Canucks had none. And the Canucks are blowing open every door and beating every team and storming every barn in the league and being good, and the Devils are not. But I mean, in the long run, that Schneider trade is looking like the Canucks came out on top. I mean, yeah, was Schneider good for the Devils for a long time? Yeah. But that 9th overall pick that became Bo Horvat, I mean, captain, was the franchise center, is now playing number 2 to Elias Pettersson, which isn't a bad thing. He slots in better. He's a high-end number 2 center in the NHL now. Like, he's a captain, big guy in the locker room. Like, he's got 6 goals. He's tied with Elias Pettersson for 2nd on the team in goal scoring.
And I give the Canucks a lot of credit for sticking with Jacob Markstrom because for a couple of years he really,
But the whole team was kind of bad.
Right, but I give them a lot of credit for sticking with him because he's really turned that corner. He's a legitimate number 1 starter.
Well, remember when Florida gave up on him? I remember the first start he had in Florida. He comes in, loses the game. I think he's a 4 goals on 41 shots, makes 37 saves, and they're like, he's not as good as we thought he was. And I'm like, but he's not good. Like, the team's not good. And then he gets traded to Vancouver, where the team's not good. And now that the team's good, and it's like, oh wow, they're playing like structured hockey, where they resemble like a competitive hockey team. The guy's got a 2.47 and a 9.18. 9.18's not great. I mean, that's like league average, but he's got about like a lower than average goals against. I mean, in 12 games, and like you said, he looks good. Like I think he finally looks comfortable too. I think it's important.
Because for a long time he was kind of just that big, like lanky, awkward, like didn't know how to use his size kind of guy.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of like settled in. And he's looking like he knows what he's doing. I mean, their special teams is also top 10 in both penalty kill and power play, so that's got to help.
I think Travis Green is, if they keep up with it, I think he's Jack Adams winner unless something miracle happens. But I mean, he took a team that really wasn't that good last year and added some pieces and has turned them into honestly their playoff team in my opinion. Like I think they make the playoffs in that division, especially with how bad San Jose has been.
Yeah, well,
I mean, San Jose was the wild card. We really like, were they going to be good or bad, and if they could slot into a playoff spot, but like they're bad.
they're bad. Martin Jones, still bad.
Still the streakiest goaltender in the NHL. To live and die by Martin Jones is the worst decision San Jose made.
And the crazy part about this team is that almost every key part of this club is not even close to 30.
Nope.
Pedersen, Besser, I think JT Miller, he's under 30 at this point, isn't he?
Yeah,
I think he's
Bo Horvat's he's 25.
I mean, I think JT Miller might be the oldest quote-unquote piece of that wheel, and he's 26. Bo Horvat, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko in the long run. I mean,
you have guys in the system like Jesse,
Jesse Uolivi.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be coming up. I mean, this could be a team that's competitive for a long, long time. I do want to talk about Quinn Hughes. I don't know if you get to watch a lot of Canucks games. I really don't as much because they're kind of out on the West Coast. But, from what little you've seen of him, how do you think he's living up to that expectations of being... Because for all intents and purposes, coming into the season, he was the defenseman. Quinn Hughes is going to anchor that blue line.
And he's done it. I mean, he looks good. He's exactly what they wanted out of him. He's a dynamic, puck-moving defenseman who, I mean, can be a little shaky in his own end, but like learning defense at the NHL level is something that you continue to do throughout your whole career. I mean, John Carlson only very recently started to look like comfortable on both ends of the ice.
That guy's something else this year, too.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. He finally is comfortable at both ends of the ice. So it's like, okay, well... Now we can stop talking about how he's weak in his own end. So it's like Quinn Hughes will get there. I mean, it's like Erik Karlsson. We stopped talking about how weak Erik Karlsson was in his own end. Erik Karlsson was in his own end when he's won back-to-back Norris trophies, or not back-to-back. When he won 2 Norris trophies. It's like, all right, well, I really can't say anything anymore.
Right. I guess he figured it out, eh?
And I guess Quinn Hughes. I think Quinn Hughes will be in that conversation eventually for Norris trophies. I mean, I think he's a Calder Trophy nominee this year, if not the winner. I mean, he's got 12 points in 17 games for a rookie defenseman. Like, that's absurd. I mean, he's going to take a challenge from Cale Makar, who's also lighting it up. But, I mean, Quinn Hughes is he's a new age defenseman. He's not that big. He's strong, but he's fast. He can move the puck, and he's not afraid to make a play. I mean, it's exciting to watch. Because, like you said, it's not boring anymore. He's not going to just come over the line and chip the puck in. He's going to make a play, and he's going to look to make a play.
He's not a Kevin Bieksa type player where it's like, And again, there's nothing wrong with quote-unquote boring hockey, because I know my Islanders play quote-unquote boring hockey. It was just that I was very disinterested in the Canucks for a long time.
Because there wasn't anything interesting.
They went from Stanley Cup contenders to just really mediocre and old, and then it was just, yeah.
And they got stuck. They weren't sure what they wanted to be, and they signed Louis Eriksson to that 6-year contract, and it's like...
Oh, God. Yeah, that was a mistake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anybody could have told you that when they signed it.
So... Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the Canucks. Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to talk about specifically?
Not particularly. I mean, I think we touched on the really hot topics. And I think, did Chris Letang get injured again? I think, right?
He's been in and out of the lineup. He wasn't in the lineup when they played the Islanders. I know that.
Yeah,
so.
He's injured. I mean, that's there's been a couple of ones. I mean,
like I said, Crosby missed game the other day.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, let's play a little game of the teams that we kind of talked about. Let's do a little bit of, kind of early season predictions. Where do you see the Islanders slotting in at the end of the year?
I think it'll be just like it was last year with the Metro. I think them and the Capitals are going to fight for the top of that division. And I think it'll come down to 1 point. I mean, whether the Islanders, I said they finished in second, but I mean, I could see it being them getting 99 points and the Capitals getting 98 points or 109. It's really up in the air because the Capitals are also really, really good, but the Islanders, I mean, 12 straight games at the point. You can't argue and say they're not good. That's a consistency too. That proves that they're consistent night in and night out. And they're getting goaltending like they did last year. I mean, and Barzell's looked better this year than he did last year. So I think there's an offensive punch there that wasn't there. And he's a game breaker when he's skating because nobody can keep up with him. He's like McDavid. He's got a stride that's explosive, and that first step pushes him away from a lot of people. So I think they're going to finish right at the top of the division, just like I said at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I put them third, I think, behind the Flyers. The Flyers have been,
Not good.
I mean, they're third in the division now, but they haven't been as, that defense is taking time to adjust to some new pieces. So, I'm going to upgrade them. I'll say they'll end up either second or first. I think Washington will still win the division, but I think they will be competing. Rangers, end of the year, where do you see them?
I think they'll miss the playoffs. They're not showing the consistency enough in and night out, and like defensively they look like that's where really it is. They're not showing the consistency defensively night in and night out. I mean, like to win 4-1, 4-2, and then lose a game 6-5. It's like, all right, well, and then you lose 6-3 to Ottawa. You lose 6-2 to the Buffalo, like the Boston Bruins. Like, I mean, it's coming together. I think they'll be competitive down. I think they'll be playing meaningful hockey into like April. I don't think they're going to slide as far out of the playoff picture as they did last year. But I mean, it's not playoffs or bust this year, so it's okay that they don't make it. Like, but I mean, I think they'll be in the mix, at least in the discussion going into March, and then they'll probably start to fall a little further back. But
so you're saying okay. Miss the playoffs by 4 or 6 points?
Yeah,
4 to 8
huge.
Points, something like that.
Yeah, nothing like crazy. Nothing like the 12 to 18 points they missed it by last year, whatever it was.
No, I agree. I think it's really that inconsistency that's going to hurt them. Going a couple big wins against some teams like Nashville and what was it? The other one,
Tampa Bay,
and then losing to a team like Ottawa. I think it's that inconsistency that's ultimately going to doom them. But I do agree. I think they'll be pretty close. I'm going to say they're going to miss between 6 to 8 points. A couple games that maybe they shouldn't have lost early in the year might come back and hurt them. But I think it's just that inconsistency that's really putting them out of the discussion right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And Vancouver, where you see them at the end of the year?
If the Canucks can regain their early season form and continue that and keep that consistency and continue with their excellent special teams, I really think they could compete for a top spot in this division. I really think they could, in theory, win this division. I mean, I haven't seen anything out of the Oilers to tell me that they're not going to fade. The offensive depth isn't there. They've struggled as of late.
I think it was like somebody's pointed out the stat. It was like 75% of their goals have come from McDavid or Draisaitl, or it was either McDavid, Draisaitl, or Cassie, and I think have accounted for like 75% of their goals.
And that's completely unsustainable. Like, that's way too top heavy. Calgary's looked mediocre this year. They haven't looked as good as I thought they would. I mean, I think they're still a really talented team, and I still think they could win. They'll probably win the division in the long run. Vegas has looked better than the Vegas team is good, but they haven't looked as good as I thought they would. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury is Marc-Andre Fleury, but I think overall Vegas has not looked as good as we thought they would. And I just think the Canucks really could make a move, like especially if they add something at the deadline. A little more scoring punch up front at the deadline. Not necessarily like some of Taylor Hall's caliber, but if say somebody like last year, like if Zuccarello was available this year instead of last year, that'd be a guy I think they could add some offensive, more to their offense. So I think they could win the division in theory. But I definitely think that they're going to make the playoffs coming out of that Pacific Division because I think the rest of those teams are not very good.
I think I agree with you for the most part. I'm going to say I'm locking them in either a second or third spot. I don't think they're quite ready to win the division, but if Calgary stays as kind of wishy-washy, kind of mediocre as they are, they could do it. I mean, I could definitely see them doing it, especially, I think Calgary is going to win the division, but if they're playing the way they are, where it's like some nights you don't know what you're going to get.
I mean, Matthew Tkachuk has literally carried that team for a couple of nights, so.
Yeah, so if Calgary's the way they are, I could see them winning division, but I'm going to lock them in either a second or third spot. But I think that's a huge improvement to my projection of them at the beginning of the season. Like I said, I'm very sorry, Canucks fans. I should have given this team more credit. I should have seen the talent. But
I think I put them in like 7th in the division too.
Yeah,
so.
I'm excited to watch this team. I love watching the Canucks now. But so that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we'll have to just see what goes on in the NHL. Probably might talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs next week. Just because they're always a topic to talk about.
There's always something new.
Just specifically in context, I do want to talk about the lack of toughness on this team, which I know has been done to death, but I want to touch on that. But we'll see what comes up. And, obviously, if guys come off the injured reserve, go on the injured reserve, I mean, we'll have to see what teams are interesting. And, yeah, I mean, that's really it for this week. I'm coming for you, Buffalo, at the end of this week. Better put on a show against the Senators. If you lose like 8-0, I'll be pissed. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for this week. We will see you guys whenever we get around to this next week.
Yeah. See ya.